Ever wondered what makes digital art so magical? I'm not talking about waving wands. I'm talking about a medium where your eraser is infinite, your colors are endless, and your canvas is literally just pixels awaiting to come alive. As you may know, I am an art man, a professional one at that, and I would love to take you through the magical world of digital art. Now, whether you're a beginner or you're trying to level up, I will gonna guide you through the process of working on a single piece from start to finish in this video. And along the way, I'm gonna show you some tips and tricks, hacks of Photoshop that will blow your mind that I have learned over the years of drawing concept art, comic book illustrations, character design, and so much more, all while working with this fancy schmancy display that was sent to us by Huion themselves for me to test out, with its own unique benefits that I'll speak on in certain parts of this video. So without further ado, let's get into it! Alright, here we are with my digital display, Huion Canva Pro 19, and also Photoshop as the software that I'm gonna be working with. Now, as you might have guessed, drawing digitally, it's nothing like drawing with pen on paper. It's more like traditional art with superpowers. What do I mean by that? Let me show you. As a start, I have a couple of sketches drawn out here, very roughly. I don't like where they are placed. Well, shrink them, move them, and boom. Magic. Try that with pen and paper. Spoiler alert, it rips. Now, the ability to shift around your work is going to come in handy later on in the other parts of this video, especially with the tools such as Transform and Lasso, so we'll talk about that later. But when it comes to hardware itself, there are drawing pads and digital displays, such as this one. Both types will help you achieve the same effect, only there's going to be a difference in efficiency and intuitiveness. For instance, I've been working with this sort of a pad for a while, and this is something that most artists pick up as a start due to the affordability mostly. And look, these are the kinds of works that I've managed to create with this kind of a pad over the years. But now that I've came into possession of this magnificent piece of, oh my goodness, it makes such a difference being able to see what I'm drawing as opposed to me looking at a screen while my hand is outside of my view. That makes a noticeable difference in terms of intuitiveness of the drawing process. Speaking of the drawing process, let's talk about brushes, because brushes aren't just tools. They are an extension of your style, your mannerism. You see, I can control pressure sensitivity by pressing down and lifting up. I can adjust opacity on the fly by transfer, see, just like that, and like that. I can use textured brushes, like these ones, or these ones, for me to add a pencil feel, or maybe mimic a crayon, an ink brush, weird little light streaks, and so much more. Oh my gosh, look at all of these choices. Now these you can find, by the way, all over the internet, posted ever so graciously by so many different artists, some for free, some with different kinds of price ranges that come in bundles. And once you find your favorite selections, here I have my own, my personal, sketch as much as you can. Use different brush sizes, set ones and the ones that vary with your pressure sensitivity, that you can manipulate with pressing down and lifting up to create thinner contours or thicker ones. Doing this will help you to get used to the feel of the drawing process, especially on a smooth surface such as this, which, by the way, this Huion Canva Pro 19 has a frosted glass one. It's very nice. It's not too grabby, but not like a freshly polished ice skating rink where you flip around and go all over the place. And for instance, many people work with iPads, and oftentimes they prefer to add an additional screen protector with a paper-like texture to mimic the sensation that they have when they usually draw traditionally with pen and paper. And with this one, I don't really have to do that, which is very nice. It took me a short while to get accustomed to it either way after drawing on paper for so many years, so even I had to take some time to sketch and do different kinds of exercises for me to get good. But you might be asking, so, this is all well and good, but I don't know how to draw. Well, you know how you normally learn from references? Welcome to the easy and simple world of grabbing photos, dropping them in and tracing over. Oh, whoa! See how easy it is. Oh my gosh, so easy! Simplify, break things down, and pull out what matters. Don't be shy, even the masters have done this. It's best to do it with both photo, to learn all the intricacies, and more artistic renditions of reality that are a bit more stylized. That way you get to both interact with the reality and different mannerisms and interpretations of that reality. So if you have no point of reference to start from, this could be a great way to get acquainted with all of this wealth of of information so that you can later illustrate your own ideas in an original manner. And remember, the point of all of this is to learn and extract the underlying information from these references so that later you can have the necessary tools to illustrate your own ideas in an original way. Now, in my case, you can see I was thinking of drawing a character in the foreground, reading some sort of a book atop of an ancient-looking terrace with some ancient structures behind. And so, bloop! I went and searched up a couple of images of the ancient Aztec, Indian, Roman architecture to use as an inspiration for my underlying sketch. See all of these shapes that I'm mimicking over here with different arched elements, possibly terraced and similar to the Aztec pyramids. I now have taken all of these elements and remixed them in a way that now this piece has elements of human-made structures that makes it more grounded, reminding us of something that is from our past. So that is very cool. Okay, once your sketch starts to take shape, you can have a final pass at adjusting, readjusting, moving stuff around just to see whether you like the proportions a bit or not. Flip around the image to see whether everything is precise or not. You can do these adjustments all throughout your drawing process just to make sure that everything is well positioned and proportioned. Composition-wise, you can also use another nifty-shifty aspect of the digital drawing, which is layering. And I have been doing this for the past couple of minutes. Like, we have all of these layers separately, but add another layer to draw out a 4x4 grid, making your drawing process even more precise to match your subjects with these guidelines, balancing your piece. Alright, now that the sketch is solid, but solid-ish, it's time to clean things up a bit. So, welcome to the contouring phase. I like to think of this part as the bones of the final artwork. You know, not too detailed, but just enough to define form and clarity for later shading. And look, I separate these layers yet again, the background, the midground, and the foreground, because I find it helpful in the moments of me making a mistake, for instance. Like if I draw over, if I have to erase it, I no longer interact with the foreground and end up deleting something that has already been worked on. So I only am isolated within a certain area and a certain specific part of the drawing. And to delegate these pieces in such a way is a very nice and organizing and neat way to work on a piece. This part also, personally, is less heavy in terms of thinking, especially creative thinking, because all the work has already been done prior to this stage. Reference image gathering, sketching, proportioning, and everything. And all of that work has essentially laid the foundation for me to build atop of all these, so to say, constructive bones of the drawing, with very little need to think about what I have to do next, or how should I proceed. So a small advice: if you do sketches in a too rough of a way, you might have to do a second pass at defining your details so that later on you can overlay with your contouring. So, you know, you can do your sketches in a clean way and make your life easier, instead of doing this work twice or 3 or 4 times. And also, another detail, with this particular display and the pen that I have, I might want to change the feel of the drawing process, create a bit of a resistance when I'm drawing out the contours. How do I do that, you might be asking? Oh well! Normally, you can replace your digital drawing pen nibs with densely compacted felt nibs. This particular Canva Pro 19 display came with a really nice set of 2 pens at that, which is very nice. And so if you want to change up the feel of the drawing sensation, you have these options as well. Not to mention yet another nifty-shifty aspect of the digital drawing that can be found not only just in this software, which is Photoshop, but also in most other digital drawing softwares, which is brush smoothing. Look here, especially when you have to contour straight and long lines or curves that require a bit more precision. Here in Photoshop, you have such a thing as smoothness, which you can turn on and off if you want to, and regulate the amount with which your contours can stabilize live as you are drawing your contours. You see what I mean? Making your line work a little bit more stable. Ain't that a treat? But even with the smoothness turned on, you might still have issues with blowing out your lines a little bit, not really matching them with a place that you want to be finished. So don't worry, you can infinitely zoom into your pieces and erase and correct all of your mistakes with almost surgical-like precision. Which, by the way, I still do till this day. It's not like I have become the great master and super stable man with lines. Sometimes I have to do this, and it is okay. So after a while of me going through all of this sketched environment and defining certain details and features, here comes the final part of the process. Shading and coloring. Here is where the magic happens. Remember when you colored outside of the lines when you were a kid? Well, now you can't! Literally, look here. You can lock your layer, more specifically its transparency, and once you want to start shading, you only draw within this filled-in color silhouette. So all throughout the process of making highlights and drawing shadows, you no longer have to worry about spilling outside of this silhouette. Oh my goodness, what a magic thing! Thank you, technology! This is why you want to block out certain areas of your drawing, like your character, which you can do with a lasso tool. You don't want to fill this entire space with brush, just go bloop bloop wow! Roughly speaking, you know, you might take your time and do it super duper precisely if you want. Foreground, midground, background elements, and even further receding parts of your drawing. But this instrument can come in handy in more ways than one. You can isolate any part of your art and experiment with color. Adjust the lighting, even texturing certain areas that you want to focus on with different kinds of brush effects. And like with contouring, you can be as methodical as you like, creating separate layers for shadows. Now, when it comes to shading, you should probably also understand the lighting and how it works, how it behaves, where the illumination should be coming from, and how it casts shadows. So just like with traditional art, you can do exercises within the digital software with digital means, having references imported from the internet to have them next to you so that you can also try out different kinds of visual effects and mimic different kinds of lightings. Now you see me work on different kinds of parts of this drawing, you know, the midgrounds, foregrounds, the buildings. And you know, at this point, the best way to do this shading is to start big, you know, with like big and bold brush strokes, and then go small and a little bit more precise, because you do not want to get lost in the sauce right from the start in terms of detailing. And also, you will have more freedom to correct your mistakes with less trepidation, because you haven't really done that much work, and it's not going to be that difficult to change things up because your work is still very malleable. You can also, at the final cosmetic phase, change the mood of the entire piece by doing a few things, like slapping a filter all over the place to bring out the graininess, the textureness, or add an adjustment layer to bring out the highlights or intensify the shadows. Shadows aren't enough on your subject? Add a multiplier layer. Wanna pop the light? Add an overlay. And just look at all of these different modes of layer opacity that you can apply. You can use them in various ways to enhance what you've already drawn with an extra addition of spice. Also, check this out. Let's say you are not that good with shading in color from the start. So imagine if I were to have done this entire piece in black and white shading, similarly how I would do in pencil. And let's say you're good at that. Well, no worries. You can do your piece in black and white entirely, and then after you've done that, create separate color layers, change the mode of your layers, and start essentially coloring in your entire shading and bringing it to life, because these modes can activate gray tones into whatever color you want to input over top of that drawing, which is absolutely crazy, man! So you can play around and change the entire mood of this drawing, you know? Not so long ago, these terraces were made seemingly out of sandstone. Now you can imagine all of a sudden that this entire structure could be made from ice. The sea could be made out of copper, or something like that. The possibilities are absolutely endless. And this is the reason why I'm showing you all of this, is to demonstrate the versatility with which you can create whatever piece you want to create, how you can manipulate different kinds of functions within your software. Be super methodical with layering. You can even use the lasso tool in such a way that you kind of build your drawing in a puzzle-like manner. And you don't have to take my word for it. You can go on the internet and search up all kinds of tutorials on every single specific aspect of not only this specific drawing, but any kind of a drawing that you can possibly imagine, done in almost any sort of manner. But of course, that is no reason for me to stop. Yeah! Oh boy! Let's go rogue! One layer, no safety nets. Layers gone. Undo button ignored. And no take-backs. Just pure unhinged creativity. You don't have to follow structure, rules. One layer, one brush. Pure intuition. It's expressive. It's unpredictable. And it reminds us that the rules and guidelines are meant to be bent, twisted, and even shattered. Oh, wow! So, what did we learn today? That digital art is weird, wild, powerful, and most importantly, yours to shape. Now, if you had fun watching this video, please consider to like, share, and subscribe. Send this video to a fellow creative of yours, or someone who isn't that creative, cause why not? Now, go outside and pet a dog, and I shall see you next time.